Thanks for waiting that extra minute, and good morning and welcome everybody to this Partners in Technology briefing. My name is Andrew Spina. I'm the Assistant Director General for Digital Productivity and Services within the Department of Science, IT and Innovation. Before we commence, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this event is taking place, and elders both past and present. So just a few housekeeping issues. The exit doors are at the back and the bathroom facilities are downstairs. In the event of an emergency, we'll follow the staff that are here, but we'll convene outside the library area there. Okay, so this is our third PiT briefing for the year. We are live streaming this morning's proceedings, so a very warm welcome to those that are joining us online. Today's briefing is going to feature a number of presentations. Firstly, from the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services. Then the Chief Advisor's Office, Queensland Government Procurement. And lastly, the recently announced Advanced Queensland Small Business Innovation Research Pilot Program. Following the presentations, we'll conclude today's session with a Q&A session, which will take us through till about 9:30 a.m. We'll then adjourn to the foyer for networking and coffee, so hopefully you can stick around until then. So it's my pleasure today to kick proceedings off and to announce the first speaker. Unfortunately, I won't be able to remain, but Paul Russell will MC from that point on. So we'll kick off with the first speaker then. So I'd love to introduce Darren Bond, the Chief Information Officer within the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services. I'm sure Darren is well known to many of you, but for those who aren't familiar, I'll just briefly give you a snapshot of Darren's career. He's had more than 28 years experience working in government and executive management roles. In 1997, Darren was appointed as the Chief Information Officer, Department of Treasury. In 2002, Darren managed the creation of CorpTech and associated IT frameworks for the then Shared Services Initiative. He led the implementation of the whole of government shared services solutions until moving to the Department of Communities in 2007 to lead the department's ICT portfolio. And that's where Darren and I worked very, very closely together, and prior to that in shared services as well. And it's great to see him here talking to you today. In 2012, Darren was appointed as the CIO of the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services. Please join me in welcoming Darren to the stage.
Thank you, Andrew. And I did hear a groan when I heard the word CorpTech mentioned, so as Andrew mentioned, I popped out of that organisation in 2007, and Andrew and I worked very closely. Andrew was actually the CIO of Communities prior to me getting the job, so I've spent the last 4 years trying to fix things up. May I also acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we meet today and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. And today, and I think perfect. I'd just like to give you a bit of an overview of the Department of Communities. Many of you who I've met before probably know the department and will know that I'm very, 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 very passionate about what we do, and that's a key element of the Department of Communities. I'll talk about some of the reforms we're working on, the blueprint that we've developed to take us forward in some of the ICT initiatives, and mention some of the opportunities that may be available for some of you in the audience. So let me kick off with an overview of the Department of Communities. And essentially the department is very broad, and if you'd ask me, so I started in 2007, late 2007, so if you'd asked me 10 years ago would I be working in the Department of Communities, I'd sort of look at you and go, why would I work there? You know, I've got no idea what they do. It's a bit touchy-feely and they fluff around a bit. But when you get in the department, you really see the effort and the work that goes into helping Queenslanders who are vulnerable. Okay, so it's all about how do we reduce inequity, how do we make sure that people are respected and that communities are strong and vibrant. If you go back to probably when, well, not all of you, but when I was a kid, there was a lot more around sort of neighbourhoods and things like that. You know, Mum would always be down at the back fence talking to Mrs. Reid and all this sort of stuff. That happens so much less today because we travel a lot more and we work outside our community. We probably go to school outside our community. And so the department is looking at ways to try and bring back that community vibrancy and strengthen the community as much as possible. So as I said, there is so much passion in the department across all areas. So, you know, I could be seen as a non-frontline, a corporate area, but we really take our job seriously and we position ourselves as a key element of the department. And again, some of you would know my mantra. If my staff were to come to me and say, oh, I can't do this because the business hasn't asked me, I'd say, well, your business is delivering child safety services, disability services, all the services the department delivers. It just so happens that you're in IT at the moment. So don't separate yourself from the business. It's a close unity that we're developing. It's so rewarding working in the department and I'm really passionate about it. Sometimes it can be really difficult though. And I'm sure all of you would have recently seen the tragic case of Mason Lee up in Caboolture, and that really affects the department, the people in the department. Everyone looks and says, could we have done better? Could we have done more? And a lot of analysis of how we deliver services and what we can do to deliver services. So when children's lives are at risk, you can imagine the passion and the effort that goes into trying to make sure that we're doing the best job that we can. If I look very quickly just at the sort of clients that we service, obviously children who are at risk of harm, we also support their families and try and make those families stronger. People with a disability, and I'll talk a bit about how we're working with the NDIS. People who are subjected to domestic and family violence, and we're suddenly, thank goodness, seeing this emerge as a key issue that's affecting all of our communities. Youth, seniors, multicultural, people from multicultural backgrounds, volunteers, carers, so people who volunteer their time to care for children, and communities as a whole, so whole of communities, particularly post-disasters, and disasters are obviously of they might be a natural cause, but they may also be a human cause. So it might be a murder of someone in a particular community, or a house fire or something like that, as well as the normal ones we think of, such as cyclones and things like that. So we always gear up for cyclone season. Let me just, now I'm not sure how I do this. Oh. So domestic and family violence is a key pillar of ours. There was a task force in 2014 headed up by Quentin Bryce, and that resulted in over 140 recommendations in what government can do to improve the outcomes and try and reduce the level of domestic and family violence in communities. And there are three drivers for change, and a lot is around changing community attitude towards domestic violence, making an unacceptable element of our communities, putting an integrated response in place. So an integrated response, I'll use that term a couple of times today. When I talk about an integrated response, what I'm talking about is joining up government services. So historically, we've seen government services target things differently. We want to join those up. And also putting a stronger justice response to it. So making people more accountable for the actions that they take. We work under 3 ministers. That can be challenging, but to be honest, these 3 ministers are excellent to work with. This is being live streamed, isn't it, Andrew? Yep. Excellent to work with. I've never worked with 3 more professional and capable ministers. But seriously, they are very good and easy to work with. Shannon Fentiman is probably the one that we deal mostly with around child protection, Coralie O'Rourke for disability services, and Grace around multicultural affairs. And it's Multicultural Month. So it's Multicultural Month now, and there are a number of events across the state. Within the Department of Communities, you can see most of our staff are frontline, or what we call frontline support roles. They work directly with the frontline staff, and over 90% of our staff take on those roles. We spend a lot of money with our non-government partners, and there's over $1 billion spent every year with those particular partners. We're going through a large reform at the moment, and every dimension of our organisation is undertaking reform. The key reform drivers, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, moving the responsibility for supporting people with a disability to the federal government. I'm sure everyone's heard of the NDIS. A huge reform that's going on right now. The Child Protection Commission of Inquiry, or more commonly known as the Carmody Inquiry, this gave us a large number of recommendations into how we can strengthen the child protection system, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. A special task force into domestic and family violence, the Bryce report, I've touched on that, and the Royal Commission that's going on now into institutional responses to child sex abuse. You would have seen that in the press, I'm sure, and the churches, etc. There will be a lot of recommendations coming out of that, particularly around protecting children and probably the liability of organisations in ensuring that they provide safe environments for children. So they're our key drivers. There are a whole heap of other ones as well that I've just put up so you can take those away, but they will influence largely as well. Innovation drivers, strategy drivers, and social drivers. And a key one for us down here is digital disruption. And we're looking at how we take that sort of driver and implement that within the organisation. You won't be able to read any of this, but again, it's a takeaway and you can go to the website and grab it. But let me touch on each of the key areas. Child and family reform. So in there, again, Carmody's driving a lot of that, supporting families, making families stronger. So not just about the children, how do we make sure the families are stronger? Strengthening what we call the secondary service. So over 120,000 reports of child abuse are received by the department each year. What we want, not all of those are substantiated. What we want to do is take that pressure and send some of those to a secondary service, if you like. So it might be that a family needs support, but it's not yet in a statutory level of the child having to be removed from a family or anything like that. So maybe there are programs that our partners could offer that would be able to support those families and help them out. Also under that particular area, we look at the Bryce report and the domestic and family violence reforms. We've got the disability services. The key part there is the NDIS and moving our clients to the federal government. That's happening now and will occur over the next 3 years, and it will see about $2 billion of investment moving from the state to the federal government. Interestingly, the federal government's position, thank goodness, is to have it more like an insurance scheme as opposed to what funding's available, and we share out that funding as best we can. So that will see an increase in the investment, and that industry alone will go from a $2 billion investment, as I just said, to $4 billion. So you can see that industry is going to grow enormously. And if I can say to all of you, there are huge opportunities to help those organisations in their technical literacy, their technical capabilities, and the solutions that they need. And we're working with a number of peak bodies now to try and help them implement those sort of improvements. We've also got social services. Key there would be around strengthening the industries. So helping industry become stronger, strengthening the non-government organisations. Also looking at how do we invest. So investing for outcomes is a key push that we're pushing that we're moving towards at the moment. In community inclusions, assisting youth, multicultural, as I said before, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, seniors, and communities themselves, so strengthening the communities as a whole. And then the last one, some organisational strategies that you'll be able to look at.
To me, the NDIS means for Ben that there's some certainty in his development. Ben has Down syndrome, so Ben's nearly 4 years of age. I don't see why he should have any limitations for him to reach as high a level as he possibly can.
Cannon is an amazing young man. He was always a unique little person. And our normal day was go over to the special education developmental unit, and then we'd go do the speech run, and we'd do an OT run somewhere within the week, and it was late nights. We fought really hard.
It's really surprising to hear that there are people with disabilities that aren't actually receiving any support at the moment. And if the current system doesn't allow support for everyone, that needs to change, and the NDIS is that system that is invoking the change.
I believe that with the right supports, we all can do anything that we want to do.
It's so important that people with disability are seen as contributors by the community. The NDIS, for me, means that people with a disability are finally able to actually have choice and control, and to have our customers guide about what they want us to be in the future, because really we belong to them.
Any changes they want are basically the changes that will take place. The service provider too will have the flexibility that they can change.
The providers in the early launch side are very tuned in to what the future means for them. They understand the work they do is incredibly important to people with a disability and their families and their carers.
A lot of families maybe that didn't have support previous to NDIS will be able to gain support.
We feel reassured now that Ben's time in the future, he'll be well looked after and cared for the rest of his life.
He does have a place in this world. He absolutely knows to stand up and take that place.
To me, the NDIS is a changing of attitudes for people with disabilities here in Queensland.
To support us to go forward, we've developed the Future Ways of Working document, and it's available on our website, so I'd encourage you to have a look at that if you get the opportunity. But it's really about how do we embrace technology, how will digital services assist the department going forward, and how can we give our clients, Queenslanders, more choice and flexibility. So there are a number of key elements. I'll just touch on them because I can see my clock counting down very quickly. So the first one is around a mobile workforce, ensuring that people can get out and deliver the services and use technology where they need to. It's using data and analytics in a much more powerful way. It's looking at multi-channel content delivery so people can access our services and utilise our services any way they want. It's to allow people to connect from anywhere, allow increased collaboration both within the organisation and across our partners and with our clients. It's to create a digital identity. So how do we know that the client we're working with is the client we're working with? How do we link up data across government departments? Can we have an identity so that we are able to better service individuals and allow them to tell their story only once? Use data to inform new service delivery options. So how can we use the data analytics from above to drive our investment decision making, and perhaps even move to a more predictive service model, whereby we're assisting families with non-intrusive programs that can help them prior to them coming to the attention of a statutory service. And then looking at emerging technologies and capabilities. So what's coming up that we can use? Can we use drones to deliver, I don't know, pizzas or something? Within information services, I focused on the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services, but we also actually serve the youth justice component within Justice and Attorney General, and also DATSIP. We've got over 220 network sites across the state. So it's a very diverse portfolio that we support and a very wide spread of services. We've got a number of strategic objectives. Given time, I won't go through those, but please have a look at the document that I've said before. I want to focus in on our portfolio just quickly. So this is the key new initiatives that we're doing for 16-17. There are a couple of others that are emerging that I haven't put on here yet, but I will put on. But they do present opportunities of where we want to work with industry closely to implement solutions to address these issues. The first one is around adoptions, and there's changes to adoption laws that will see us needing to reform that particular solution. Care Pay is almost finished, so this is the system that delivers, if you like, the fortnightly payment to carers across the state, so those that care for children who are in foster care. Child and family services reform, so a huge piece of work here. We've got a number of initiatives. One is called Kickbox, which I'll show you on a couple of slides. But we really want a number of frontline solutions that help people deliver services directly to clients. And we're also looking at that secondary service, strengthening and putting systems in to provide non-government organisations with solutions that they can use to case manage clients as they come in. So there's a large piece of work there. A fair bit of work in community recovery reform. We've actually just gone to the market recently for that piece of work, and this is around helping people after a natural disaster. Domestic and family violence, again, leveraging off the Bryce report, 4 components in there. One is around an integrated response, again, having tools so that police, health, communities, justice can come together and talk about cases and how we best strategise to address those particular issues. We want a lot of self-service solutions put in place, and this includes, we're doing some work at the moment with Telstra around perhaps tracking perpetrators and ensuring that we can geofence and make people safe. Doing a lot of predictive analytics so that we can predict where there may be problems, perhaps in certain communities we might be able to aim services there, and also develop an innovation lab looking at new ways of addressing that particular wicked problem. We're looking at information sharing, and this to me is the groundbreaker around how we share information across departmental organisations and break down those organisational barriers. A huge piece of work going there, linking in with one of the emerging initiatives that's not up there, which is our integrated client management system replacement. So this is our system that we use for child protection, a large system that we've built over many, many years. We need to look at the replacement of that system and how that will drive information sharing across government organisations. A number up there as well. The last one, social investment and contract management, is about how we pay our NGOs and how we invest with our NGOs, and we're doing some work at the moment with Deloitte's, but there will be a lot of opportunities there. If I look at one of the examples...
It can be tough when life feels like a mess. From not knowing what to do or how to do things, they just seem like adult things. Maybe it's time to sort out your life. The Sortly app is your pocket companion. It's that life instruction manual you've always wanted, straight from the tree of knowledge. Covering the essentials like finding a place to live, looking after yourself and managing money, Sortly will be there to help you reach your goals. From your first job, to your first car, to your first crush, Sortly will get you through. The thing is, even though everyone else looks like they have life sorted, it's because they've got Sortly too. Brought to you by the Create Foundation, the Queensland Government and Telstra. Download Sortly from the App Store, Google Play and Windows Store.
So this is a solution that helps kids who are transitioning from care as they enter adulthood, how do I find my house, etc., etc. If you've got a teenager, I'd encourage you to download it. It's free. They can use it as well. Kickbox, this is a solution that we're looking at for kids who are in care to have their own, think of it as a drop box for those kids. So those kids can move around a lot. They don't get to keep their photos. They don't get to keep a whole heap of memories about what they do. They don't have consistency of care. So this is a solution that they access, and they can put in photos, they can put in goals, they can put in certain things, and they can communicate back with their CSO. It's a really great initiative, and we're really quite proud of this one. Very, very client-focused and very innovative from our perspective in the way that we can deal with kids who are in crisis. I'll just skip over our data governance and I'll finish up there because I'm out of time. We'll have questions at the end, but there are my contact details, so please, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact me at, well, it says CIO, obviously darren.bond@communities of work probably as well. So thank you very much.
Good morning everyone here, and good morning to our online participants as well. My name is Paul Russell and I'm the Executive Director for the Digital Economy Program in Intercity. And thanks very much, Darren, for that excellent presentation. I think as we in government get involved more and more with the community, certainly in my agency, I'm always very impressed with the complexity and comprehensive nature of the community's portfolio. One area that I would like to acknowledge them, and you just skipped over, which is data governance, but in the open data space, communities have been one of the leading agencies on publishing and also interacting with the market. And just recently we had the GovHack weekend event here in Brisbane, or nationally for that matter, and we had 8 events across Queensland, and communities were one of the 5 agencies that sponsored an award. And all of the entries are now viewable on the Hackerspace website. If you're interested, there's 140 entries, and there's a very competitive set of entries for the Communities Award. So thanks very much, Communities, for your help. So thanks, Darren. Our next speaker this morning is David Braithwaite, and David is the Program Director of Implementation in the Office of the Chief Advisor for Queensland Government Procurement. David's an experienced supply chain procurement and supplier management professional with over 10 years of experience in that field. His experience includes transformational project management, change management, stakeholder engagement, procurement, logistics and service delivery in both the public and private sectors, having gained experience now in the health portfolio and housing and public works in the Queensland Government, but in the private sector with Boeing Defence Australia, DynCorp International and Peabody Energy. So I'd like you to welcome David as he presents on the procurement agenda in government. Thanks, Dave.
Good morning. It's a bit of a tough act to follow with Darren there. That was a very good presentation. I don't have any videos. It's not quite as polished, and it's probably a slightly drier subject matter, so bear with me. But I am here, I'm really pleased to be here this morning to give you an update onto Queensland Government procurement. So in 2015, there was a review into Queensland Government procurement. The Queensland Government spends approximately $16 billion a year on goods and services, not including the social services procurement. There's an opportunity to use this spending to deliver on broader social outcomes as well through, we do enable job creation, better business activity in the state, improve social outcomes, and better value for money purchasing. And in 2015, the government committed to a broad-ranging review of Queensland Government procurement practices to ensure particularly that probity, value for money, and local content were at the forefront of the state's procurement policies. An interdepartmental committee was formed to lead the review and focused on how should procurement be delivered across Queensland Government. It was consulted extensively with agencies and industry. That's the cover you can see there, and it's on the website, and I'd encourage you to download and have a look at it if you're interested. As I said, it was consulted extensively. Down the bottom there you can see there was 16 IDC Director General meetings. We had 16 submissions from agencies and 9 from industry. We had 29 consultations with industry and 5 sort of workshops. We have had 20 ARG meetings, which are agency reference group, where we've got agency representation from every agency. And we've had sort of over 200 consultations with agencies. So what did we find? The top 5 feedback from each agency, from both industry and agencies, are there. Industry in particular, that procurement shouldn't be centralised. That when we're focusing on probity, value for money, local content, that it should be embedded into the way that we make our procurement decisions. That we should invest in government staff and building procurement capability. That there should be certainty over public sector investment and forward procurement pipelines. And that we streamline and simplify the government procurement processes. And you can see some similarities with the feedback that we've gotten from agencies there as well. Guidance on value for money, increases in staff capability, improvement in systems and reporting, governance with clear levels of accountability, roles and responsibilities, and a flexible model to cater for the different requirements and services delivered by the agencies. So then we looked at where we are now and obviously where we need to be. The graph you can see out there is sort of a maturity curve model we've been using to represent a number of different things during the course of the review. And you can see there the foundation level is identified as the current state. This is the high-level summation. There are some pockets of excellence in government in various parts of procurement. And it's important to note when we have a look at these things, this is where we're starting now, given the current requirements we're looking at for government. In the last few years, we've introduced category management as a concept in government. Prior to that, we were focusing mostly on strategic sourcing and contract management, and that's an area that the government does relatively well, and the maturity is certainly higher than the indicated state there. But as we look at category management and some more modern procurement practices, the whole of sector has been identified as being at a sort of a foundational level. Where we want to go is to be able to be a leading level, and we've got the review into procurement, the IDC report indicates a sort of 3 to 4 year journey to move up the maturity curve to be a leading capability. So how do we get there? So we've got the IDC has a 6-point plan, and as you can see there, embedding agency leadership and ownership of procurement. That's really about agencies being responsible for their own procurement and being supported by a model that caters for differences across the sector. Point 2 is to being enabled through a whole of government function, and that's so strategic advice, practical tools being provided by the Office of the Chief Advisor of Procurement, and to support a consistent and effective approach to procurement. 3, to strengthen governance. We want a tiered governance model that provides strategic oversight and ensures informed and representative decision making about procurement related initiatives. 4, to improve industry engagement. We want more coordinated engagements and advance notice of opportunities to make it easier for industry to do business with government. 5, to increase our procurement capability. So we're taking an accreditation approach for both individuals and agencies, as well as investment in procurement skills so that we can professionalise the procurement and drive better outcomes across government. And 6, to understand and address our knowledge and information needs. So we know that data, systems and reporting, knowledge management in general is going to be vital for us to be able to improve procurement across the sector. So this slide indicates just how we've taken the industry feedback that you saw before. It's been reflected in the planning and the 6-point plan, and then through into implementation activities that are currently underway. So as I said, we're adopting an agency-led and centrally enabled procurement model. That we've got a Queensland procurement policy review, and we're providing updated guidance shortly on particularly those focus areas of probity, value for money and local content. As I said, we're adopting a procurement professional and departmental accreditation frameworks. We've got looking to improve the forward procurement pipelines across Queensland Government spend profile, and establishing a procurement advisory group for industry to coordinate industry advice about how we can make it easier to do business with government. So what does it look like in practice? So it's very high level. Look at the operating model. So the strategy is largely set by the IDC report that you can get online, and we've subsequently done a detailed operating model, which we'll go through some of the detail here. So moving through to governance, as I mentioned, we're looking for a tiered governance model. And you can see the high-level representation there. So the corporate executive board, the CEO leadership board, which is was formerly known as the DG Council. It's Directors General from across government. They're an existing government structure, and they'll be the overarching governance authority for Queensland Government Procurement. Below that, you can see the Queensland Government Procurement Committee, and they'll oversee, direct and sponsor key strategic whole of government initiatives sort of across the sector. Beside that, you can see the Procurement Industry Advisory Group, which will formalise regular engagements with industry and facilitate coordinated industry advice on how we can make it easier for businesses to do business with government. And on the bottom there, you can see the 6 category councils. They're led by agencies, and the councils will be responsible for agreeing and overseeing strategy for those categories and developing initiatives that will be pushed up for approval. So what support's needed? So looking at the capability framework there, so we're looking to take a workforce approach, so a whole of government, a real genuine workforce approach to capability improvement. But as I mentioned, the key aspects to that there are the accreditation of the procurement professionals. So we're looking to form a framework for individuals to establish and help professionalise procurement as a specialty area and create consistency across the sector. Will involve 3 components: formal qualifications, skills training, and continued professional development tailored to the general roles of groups. So we're looking to have people accredited for the roles and activities that they'll be doing within the system. Agency accreditation, which will be, some aspect of that will be the percentage of personnel that the agencies have that are accredited for the roles that they've got, as well as that agencies have the processes and structures in place to ensure that they're within the policy and they're delivering value for Queenslanders. And there'll be a capability framework that aligns and supports agencies in delivering training to their people and making sure they've got the processes and procedures they require to be able to meet those minimum standards set by the accreditation frameworks. So moving to process, that's a pretty standard procurement process, but you can see there that we're adopting a category management process. Anyone who's familiar with procurement and category management will see that and go, yep, that's pretty standard. You can see along the bottom there that what we are trying to do is to drive procurement-related policy into, so whether that's improving unemployment in regions, being able to increase Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander industry participation, being able to get some social procurement outcomes, so being able to procure things and be able to still deliver social outcomes in parallel to that. So we're trying to really drive that in across the process. And that'll be done at different levels. Strategically, it'll be done at a category management level. When we get into category management planning and strategies will identify what procurement-related policies that we can deliver on. And then further down the process, you'll be able to do operational pieces. And the Office of the Chief Advisor is charged with providing guidance and assistance to the agencies that are leading their categories and to the agencies that are participating in those different steps in the process. So we'll be providing them guidance, tools and templates, example clauses or criteria for tenders, etc., to be able to help them deliver on some of the procurement-related policies across government. So the keys to achieving our procurement strategy. This is probably really a core part of it. So communication, we recognise that we need to do communication better across the sector with regards to procurement, both internally, so that we can communicate the opportunities at a whole of government level, or make it more easy to access those guidance materials, etc. But also externally, and that's part of we're trying to address that by establishing the procurement industry advisory group, as well as we're encouraging the category councils to engage more with industries on their particular categories. Knowledge management is really about being able to practically manage all of those guidance materials and those sorts of things that I mentioned before. So category management methodologies, strategic sourcing best practice, contract management frameworks, supplier management frameworks, standard terms and conditions for the different categories, all those sorts of things. Is being able to have an active management of those things in government, so that it makes it really easy for procurement professionals to be able to get the best practice that we've got in government. And also we were looking to provide some advisory services out of the Chief Advisor, so that we have some coordinated capability that can go into an agency and provide advice when they bump into things that they're not used to dealing with. Procurement intelligence, so market insight is one large aspect of that, being able to help the categories really understand what's going on in their markets and just innovative solutions that are across the markets in general. And data analytics is a huge one for us, and it's something we recognise that we don't do very well at the moment. The data that we've got that's in the ERP solutions across government, those ERP solutions when implemented have been largely focused on the finance aspect of things, and we're not doing a very good job of capturing the procurement data that we need to be able to do spend analytics and really understand in detail how we're spending our money. So that's a really big focus for us over the next little while, but it's also a big, we recognise it's going to be a big, long process because we've got 19 agencies, changing ERP implementations across 19 agencies, or the business processes for how they use those things to be able to capture the procurement data we need is a long-term process and a long-term prospect. There are things that we're doing in the meantime to try and get better data analytics. And that'll allow us, obviously good data allows us to invest our limited procurement capability in areas where we can get biggest bang for our buck. And lastly, you can see systems. Systems are the solution for some of those problems that I've just described, but systems integration, particularly in a government context, as I'm sure you're all aware, can be challenging at times. So it's going to be they're going to be the long-term strategic pieces of some of the work we're doing, but it's certainly something we want to identify where we want to go, so that we can keep those keep those end states in mind as we make our tactical improvements in the short term. Lastly, we get into performance reporting. So how we know if we're being successful in delivering what's needed. It's probably something we've not done really well in the past. I think every time we change government, we get asked questions about how much money we spend in Queensland and or how much money we spend with some of the minority groups or disadvantaged groups. The reality is we actually don't do a terrible job of doing those things. We just don't have a very good way of telling anyone that we're doing it. That comes back to the quality of the data we've got. But also, in general, as I mentioned before, governance will play a big part in our reporting and performance management. What we've got there, you can see, it's a bit of a hodgepodge. It's not a great and easy representation, and it's because we've got work to do in this space. But we'll be looking to do performance reporting and performance management at a number of levels. So there'd be the agency levels, because as we said before, they own the procurement. There'd be at the category council levels, where we've got opportunities to do whole of government improvements and run whole of government initiatives. There'd be at the whole of government, so across all of those 6 categories, but also we'll be measuring ourselves in the Office of the Chief Advisor to see what we're doing to be able to better enable the new operating model from an implementation perspective, but then also, as I said, what we're doing to provide guidance and do things better across government. And lastly, I suppose, focusing on what's different. So we've really gone from a centre-led approach. Now it's an agency-led and centrally enabled process. It's a bit of a hybrid. That's sort of I suppose, a bit of a pendulum in government. We tend to go centre-led, more dispersed or divested. But we think it's the right approach going forward, or we know it's the right approach going forward at the moment. We've got much stronger governance structures. Historically, the governance in procurement in particular has been a little bit, as we introduced category management and whole of government opportunities, we didn't do a very good job of organising and clarifying the governance. So the much stronger governance that you've seen in the earlier slides will be a really big key part of what we're doing going forward, and is significantly different from what we've done before. So we're implementing those by piloting all of the category councils and piloting the other governance structures we've done, so that we can actually go through an active learning process, given it's the first time we're doing it. But we're quite confident that what we've designed so far is robust enough that it'll deliver on what we're looking to do. The accreditation aspects of the procurement professional and departmental accreditation, formalising that so that we can set ourselves a minimum standard, and then creating a capability framework that will support the agencies in delivering that. That's significantly different. We've been sort of doing capability, but without really setting the goalposts that we've been aiming for. So the accreditation is a key difference. And lastly, the identification, I think, of the success factors of the enablers is significantly different. We've been talking about data for some time, but I think we've actually got a plan this time. And that is me. So thank you very much for your time. I'll be up later on to answer questions. Cheers.
Thanks, David, for that presentation. And given procurement is a constant challenge of the IT sector, I'm sure there'll be some questions in the Q&A section about how that translates down to an ICT industry platform. So thanks very much for your participation. Our third presentation this morning is at the heart of the Advanced Queensland agenda, and it's one of the new program initiatives that we've launched recently that's out in the marketplace now. But before I make some comments about that, I just wanted to let you know that during the week, the Premier announced, and some of you may be familiar with this, that Queensland now has a Chief Entrepreneur position. Mark Salby, who's the founder and one of the directors of the Brisbane-based Blue Sky equity company, is our first Chief Entrepreneur at the state level, and I believe it's the first across the country. And the role is very much to try and build an understanding of the importance of entrepreneurship right across the Queensland marketplace, from the schools through to private sector, the government sector, etc. So we're looking forward very much to exciting times with that new role over the next couple of months. So this morning we've got a joint presentation on the new program, the Small Business Innovation Research Initiative, and it will be jointly presented by one of my colleagues, Kylie Cooper, who is our Director of Innovation Policy within the Innovation and Strategic Policy Division of the department. And Kylie is also going to be joined by Ben Sorensen, and Ben is a Director of PwC's Innovation and Disruption team, based here in Queensland but operating around the country and internationally. So Kylie has had very strong oversight of the development of this new program, the Small Business Innovation Research Program, which aims to help solve complex government challenges while providing commercial opportunities for innovative businesses. And Kylie has, over the past 20 years, I know she might not look like that, but over the last 20 years has had a big hand in a lot of the innovation policy agenda here in Queensland and contributed nationally as well. Ben is the leader of PwC's Queensland Innovation Hub, and works very closely with us and the PwC Chair in Digital Economy at the QUT. And Ben's focus is on helping organisations and individuals to adapt to new ways of thinking, positively disrupt ourselves and themselves, and create new value. So I'm going to invite Kylie and Ben jointly, but I think Kylie, you might be leading off. So please welcome Kylie.
Thanks, Paul. So we're here to talk about a couple of new pilot programs that the government's trialling as part of the aim to do things differently within government. Okay. Yes, please. Okay, so the Small Business Innovation Research Initiative. This is a pilot program, as I said, and based on programs of similar name in the US and the UK. It's very much a new way of doing business for government. Instead of releasing detailed specifications for what we're looking to procure, we're releasing details of challenges or opportunities that the government's facing for ways of doing operations or services in a new and different and improved way. So challenge statements are released to the open market. We've got some out at the moment, providing some context of the opportunity and the challenge that's being faced, along with details of the constraints that government's working within and the benefits that we're seeking. Applicants are able to propose solutions to these challenges and will be funded to research, develop and test those ideas. So the dual aims are up there: providing commercial opportunities for innovators, funding for the crucial feasibility and proof of concept stages, opportunity should the process prove successful and the idea be proven to be feasible and proof of concept be successful, the opportunity to secure government as a lead customer, and intellectual property that's developed by the applicant is retained by the applicant. And for government, we're looking to improve our services and operations. We're looking to do things differently. We're looking to open up procurement, make it more streamlined in in alignment with the Queensland Government procurement process, open up government to a wider range of innovators and improve our operations in our service delivery. In developing this program, we've been fortunate to have the input and advice from our Queensland Government procurement colleagues. We have an external probity advisor on board, and we've been informed by Crown Law for our terms and conditions. So just a general overview of how it works. It's a staged procurement process. Challenges are released to market, and we've got 3 out at the moment, and fortunate to be working with our colleagues from PwC, and Ben will run through those shortly. So the challenges are released to market. We've got information online around frequently asked questions, application form, and those kind of things to guide the application process. The process is open to entities who can enter into a commercial contract with government, but need to demonstrate a clear commercialisation plan and how the idea or the proposed solutions will be developed, feasibility and proof of concept proven, and be able to then supply to government at the end of the process, should the process prove successful. Shortlisted applicants will be invited to an information exchange day to hear more about the challenge and opportunity, and an opportunity to refine their proposals. That's followed by a solution presentation day, which is held in a closed environment where solutions are then pitched and discussed with assessment panels. And then successful applicants will then be chosen to undertake a feasibility study of up to 6 months, followed by our proof of concept stage, which is up to 12 months. I'll just pass over to Ben to talk about the challenges that we've currently got out to market.
Good morning, everyone. We're very proud to be working with Queensland Government on this initiative. Queensland is leading the country in this sort of work, and these are challenges which we believe, if we solve them, can affect the prosperity of future generations of Queenslanders. So it's a privilege to be working on them. The first challenge here is the Asset Lifecycle Management Challenge, and I'll let you read the challenge statement up there. So I want to get across to you some information about the challenges, where you can find more information. There's a lot more detail on them on websites, and how you can apply to help solve these challenges if it's something that you believe that you can contribute to. So challenge statements up there. We are publishing challenges rather than a procurement. We want this solution. We're looking for a range of solutions. This is open innovation, which is reaching out into the community of problem solvers out there, innovators out there, who have different experience and different IQ that can be brought together to solve these challenges. This particular one is run by the Department of Housing and Public Works, and within there, the Building Asset Services. There are numerous agencies that are contributing towards this challenge as well, given that there are billions of dollars worth of assets across Queensland that the Building Asset Services Group help with. In Queensland, $800 million a year is spent on asset maintenance. And one of the challenges we have is we need a multi-decade view. Some of these assets are literally over 100 years old courthouses in the middle of country towns that are no longer used as they were intended to use. Populations change, and the government is looking for different ways that are going to help give a multi-decade view of these assets and their life cycles, with a view to potentially being able to offer asset maintenance programs to create jobs, both in metropolitan but also in regional areas, which are better than just here's 3 months' work, here's a program of work. So significant opportunity there, I think, and there's technology that's going to be at the core of this, I believe. But it's not currently being solved the way that the government would like it to be solved. So there is opportunity. Sorry. Next one is from the Department of National Parks, Sport and Racing. This is about lighting systems. The challenge here is about wellbeing for the people of Queensland. We have a lot of playing fields out there, hundreds and hundreds across the state, and they don't all have lighting on them. Lighting systems, basically, it might seem a bit simple, but lighting systems help people to stay fit and well because we have busy lives that are just getting busier and busier, and playing fields and sporting clubs are often the heart of communities. This challenge is to hopefully tap into some of these new technologies that are out there around lighting systems that can be purchased and applied to sporting fields. The current lighting systems, I'll tell you briefly about them, they have a relatively low cost of entry but a relatively high cost of ownership for community organisations. And a significant proportion of the funding that these community organisations get goes towards running these systems because they've got that high cost of ownership and running. New systems are maybe more expensive to get in, but they have a longer life perhaps, and a lower cost of ownership. And I won't specify what those things might be because I don't want to push anyone in any directions, but we know that they're out there and we're looking for these suggestions and solutions to come through. The final one is about something that we see a lot about. It's the reef. So this is from the Environment and Heritage Protection Department. The Great Barrier Reef is a significant asset for the people of Queensland and the people of Australia. In terms of an economic benefit, there's over $4 billion worth of economic benefit that the reef provides directly to the Queensland economy every year. The water quality feeding into the Great Barrier Reef lagoon is something which directly impacts the health of the Great Barrier Reef. At the moment, there isn't the fine-scale monitoring that's going to enable the changes in land management practices that can help improve the quality of water that flows into that lagoon. This is looking for different ways to understand the water quality, monitor that water quality real time, and in a much more cost-effective way, which will enable fine-scale and broad-scale monitoring across catchments. This is a significant one, as I said, for the state, for the country. It's a World Heritage Area, and I think we all want to see this protected for future generations. There's a lot more information about each of these challenges on the websites. So you can get more information firstly from the Advanced Queensland websites and also directly at openinnovation.com.au. Each of the challenges has background information about why this is a challenge worth solving. There's contextual information around each of these challenges. There's some technical information where relevant, and you're able to download all of that. There are terms and conditions on each of those sites as well, and there are assessment criteria that will be used for applications. The assessment criteria on there, but primarily the primary ones are that there's solutions that will solve these challenges, will address these challenges, providing value for money, they're providing benefit for the people of Queensland, and it's from organisations that are able to actually do business with the Queensland Government. Joint applications are welcome as well. If you think there's a consortia of interested parties that can come together to present a solution, individual organisations can also apply. Research organisations, commercial organisations. But the key here is this program is about finding solutions that the government can procure to help address these challenges. This is a procurement opportunity. As Kylie's mentioned, there's funding for this in both stages of the feasibility and then proof of concept. Critical date is the 12th of September. That is the closing date for applications. I can't remember what time it actually finishes, but it's all on the website. You can apply through the openinnovation.com.au website where those challenges are. So just click through and you can start the application. I think that's sort of it. All right, thank you very much. Is there another one? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Just has one other piece of information to present.
Oh, sorry about that.
Just go to the next one, it's all good. I was just going to do also, while we were here, a quick shout out for a Department of Science, Information Technology and Innovation pilot project that is also being run, the Testing Within Government, or the TWIG program. This is another pilot project and another way the government's looking to, I guess, work differently with SMEs through procurement opportunities. This one, though, is more of a grants program. So the Department of Science, IT and Innovation released 6 challenges, more operational level challenges to be solved, looking to work with SMEs through a 12-week period, and grants of up to $25,000 are available for this one. Applications have now closed and are currently being assessed, but pending the outcomes of the pilot program, there may be more rounds in the future. So that's the Testing Within Government program, or TWIG, from our department. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. So I'm just going to invite David and Darren to also come up and join us for a question and answer period. I'm sure there'll be a number of questions from people in the audience about that content. I'm just going to take a seat. So, we have a short while, 15 minutes or so, for any questions or comments that you might like to pose to any of our 4 speakers this morning. Would anyone like to lead off? Question from anyone? Right down the front here, Kylie, so the microphone will come so that the people on live stream can hear. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. Question to Darren. You mentioned about the predictive analysis of the community data, right? So just want to understand what kind of data you have. Like, you got data from different departments underneath, or what exactly?
Yeah, it's a great question. Is that working? Yep.
Yeah.
At the moment, so internally we have a large amount of data that we can use to make those sort of predictions. But the real benefit comes when we join up other government data sets. So both state and federal data sets are the ones that we're after. We're working with a number of agencies at a federal level to try and get their data sets, to match them up. They don't have to be identifiable necessarily. Now, the real benefit is if they are, but initially if they're not, we can at least identify communities and target our services to communities. But if we can get data sets that are fully identified, we are able then to directly assist individuals. Now, there's a lot of privacy concerns around that, and we need to work through those sort of elements. But I honestly believe that we'll be able to get to a position where we've got data sets from the federal government, so that would be things like employment, it would be things like anyone on Centrelink type benefits or things like that. It would be family care and those sorts of, that sort of information coming from the federal government. From a state perspective, it'd be from housing and homelessness, it'd be from health, from education, probably Justice and Attorney General would be the other one. So we'll bring all those data sets together, and then we can assist individuals in a much more powerful way. And the predictive analysis that we're trying to do is not to intrude in lives. So we don't want government going and intruding in lives. You can imagine how a family would respond when someone from Child Protection turns up on their door. Very defensive, very concerned about, well, you know, am I going to lose my children? What we'd rather is those services offered by non-government organisations. And that way it gives a much more acceptable, a much more comfortable feel to that particular service for an individual. You know, if someone from a particular non-government organisation, you know, the Salvos or someone like that turned up and said, oh look, we're here to help and we're offering this particular service, I think there's a much more possibility of acceptance of that service. But a lot of work to do. We're just at the early stages.
Darren, could I just add, and some people in the room might be familiar with this, but just recently Minister Enoch announced a 2-year partnership between the Queensland Government and the Open Data Institute Queensland, and details are on the website about that. But we're going to be doing a number of really interesting projects together. The first one is that we're actually going to be doing a number of deep dive sessions, sort of design thinking workshops, if you would, around the different parameters of a more comprehensive open data policy agenda for Queensland. And one of the issues that you're talking about lies at the heart of this, which is cross-agency data sharing, data analytics, making sense of the data type product. So if you're interested in that, I suggest that you go online with ODIQ's website and subscribe to ODI's website to participate in a number of those workshops. The other one that we're actually working on is a number of industry-specific workshops around what industry would like to see from the government by the way of high-value data released that hasn't been released yet. And we're also sort of talking to the Commonwealth who have a similar ambition in that regard. So I encourage you to go to the ODIQ's website and sign on if you're interested about that program. Next question. There was a question down the front here. Again, thank you, Kylie.
Just going forward from that conversation, is there plans to take it one step further, looking at research universities and recognise external sources to contextualise that data? I understand the benefits of the cross agencies, but taking uploading from external data would add value, I'd imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of what I didn't describe it well enough, sorry, but working with non-government organisations as well and collecting data sets from them. But to use it from a research perspective is something that we do now. We work closely with each of the universities around Queensland, and there's a lot of work that goes on now about analysing our data and making prediction about the best way that we can deliver our services and where we should aim our services. What we don't do though with the universities is any identification of individuals. So there's no identification associated with any of that. We're very, very careful that doesn't leave, if you like, our shores, and we don't want to get in a position where anyone could be identified. So it sounds simple, but it's interesting that even just putting a postcode on, against a particular line can make an individual identified. If we sort of go, here's a person with a disability and they've got other attributes, and we put the postcode in, if it's a very small community, it is actually possible to identify that individual. So we have to be very careful to de-identify that data. But working with universities is something that we continue to do.
I imagine that's a governance issue as much as due diligence and security and that process with that data.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
May I ask David a question about purchasing? Can you give us a little bit of information around how you put together the assessment panel that considers value? Particularly, I mean, in the humanities environment, that's a really difficult thing to put a value, to put a number around. So I'm really just interested in how that part of the process happens.
Yeah, so we're certainly working to provide guidance to the procurement officers. So I suppose, for me personally, I'm quite at the strategic level, and what we're doing is working to redefine value for money. So it's more than focused on dollars. So we start to include, social outcomes, environmental outcomes, those sorts of things. So we've got some guidance being developed at the moment to that end, and we're testing that with category management and the more operational procurement people so that it's meaningful, because sometimes we provide guidance and it's still so high level that it doesn't actually help the procurement officer in the way they shape a tender or the way they evaluate them or the contracts that they put in place afterwards. So we're really focusing on that more practical advice and support this time around. That, as I said, it's under development at the moment, but we're certainly trying to broaden out the definition of value for money and the guidance we're providing so it includes some other aspects.
Can I just pick up on that?
Yeah, Darren. Yeah.
We're working a lot on outcomes and having a very outcome-based procurement strategies. It's very, very hard, though, to describe that outcome, because while on the surface it may look appropriate, it may lead to some, I'll say, perverse behaviour to achieve that really doesn't get you that community outcome that you're after. So we're walking slowly across social services. There's a industry push, if you like, to procure that way, rather than buying outputs, or worse still, trying to control some sort of inputs. So historically we've probably played too much in that space, and we're trying to lift ourselves up and giving that provider the opportunity to deliver the outcome rather than worrying about the detail of how many widgets are they consuming on a particular day.
Okay.
Yeah, Shashi.
Sorry. I just want to share the questions around. Anyone that hasn't asked a question, we'll come back. Yep. We'll come back.
Thanks for the presentations. Just wanted to ask about the sort of challenges-led approach, and perhaps this is a question to David, really. You talked about, I think, a very structured, ongoing review of specification-led procurement. Would you see some future scope and perhaps a time frame for a challenge-led approach to be put in place for, I know, asset lifecycle management? It's not a small challenge, but for bigger Queensland government challenges.
Yes, well, I suppose with a category manager approach, we're trying to broaden out just from that specification sort of led approach. But there's varying levels of maturity across government, and as I said, we've identified that capability is an area that we need to work in. So we need to build that capability up before you can do those sort of more mature approaches to procurement. So it's certainly somewhere that we're looking to go, but it's probably somewhere that we're a while away from until we've developed our maturity to be able to sort of cope with that.
Okay. Over here, Matthew. Yep, sorry. And this gentleman then, Colin.
It's just a question for Kylie and for Ben. Just on the question of the innovation portal, I was wondering if it's possible in the future for you to consider to extend and broaden it to a point where you have an option that's not a set challenge but an open challenge, where you accept suggestions from people and then you choose from those and then open it up. The great thing about GovHack is there's such diversity there. Like, you presented 3 challenges. At GovHack we had several hundred challenges, but you were in fact able to go in there, be inspired by the discussions, and then propose other concepts. Like in our offering for GovHack, we presented a whole new way to take care of the security associated with the census and with online voting. And now we know that that's across all the people that would look at those offers within GovHack. With yours, you've chosen 3, in the instance you've just done, 3 very focused ones, but it'd be lovely to sort of get that really opened up so we can suggest things that you don't know, and say, hey, look, have a look at this and please give it a go.
Yeah, I think that's a really good and interesting point. And certainly there is a process run by Queensland Treasury around market-led proposals, which I'm not sure if you're aware about, but there's information around that on the government's website that might be of interest to you. But yes, certainly, I think there's a very strong desire from government to look at new and different ways of doing business, and certainly increasingly work with innovators around doing that.
Yeah, I'd say this is also a structured approach that structures certain challenges in a way to make sure that there is an incentive there for as many, qualified organisations or innovators out there to participate as possible. Sometimes the hack approach for things is not necessarily getting the higher end commercial organisations or those that are subject matter experts, or in the small to medium organisations that have innovations, like the sort of things you're talking about, how to uncover those. The structured approach gives hopefully a well-rounded incentive for everyone to participate that can, and focus resources on key challenges that are affecting the state.
I'll just pick up just on the GovHack. So taking forward what might happen is we have the awards, the state awards night here next Friday evening, and one of the things that we would like to do is for the winners and runners-up who would like to take their idea forward, because not everyone wants to take their idea forward. Some students just want to receive accolade for being, for doing some really bright stuff. But for those that would like to try and take their idea forward, we want to work with ADIQ and a few other organisations to explore how we might be able to do that, particularly if it's particularly with the agency that is the sponsor of that category of that award. So I don't think there's too many spare spaces left for next Friday night, but if anyone's genuinely interested, you could talk to us after the event. So, but it's a good idea, I think, looking at the creator leading with the idea rather than the organisation. Of course, one of the challenges is getting agencies to put forward some of these ideas and be brave and innovative in their process, which is what we're trying to achieve. So, we have another question down the front, and then one over here. Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Question to David. You talked about moving away from centralisation of the procurement policies and handing it over to the agencies. So I want to understand what are the agencies and what would be their relation with the central procurement.
So just to be clear, so we're having an agency-led procurement model, but we do have a Queensland Government procurement policy, so we still centralise the policy. The agencies are taking the lead on the category management and then the operational procurement aspects of it. So what was your second part of your question?
What are the agencies which you are trying to...
So the intent is that we look after the procurement requirements of all the agencies, but the lead agencies for the 6 categories that we have. ICT category would be led by the city. The social services category would be led by communities. The building, construction and maintenance category would be led by housing and public works. The transport, infrastructure and services category would be led by transport and main roads. The medical category would be led by Queensland Health, and the general goods and services category would be led by housing and public works as well.
So they would. So in that case, they would put their own tenders or whatever proposals directly outside, or
so they'll lead the strategies across those categories, and they'll lead some of the subcategories in those categories. They won't necessarily do all the operational procurement. They'll be broken up around the sector for areas where they've got the knowledge and capability to do those, to manage those subcategories. So you'll still see work coming out from different departments, but the idea is that more and more when we go to market for the requirement across the government rather than just for that department. Yep. So we're trying to lessen the instances of seeing tenders come out for the same stuff from different departments different ways.
Yeah, that's good actually.
I think the idea is the lead agency gets a cross-government perspective.
Correct.
Beyond just their agency. Yeah. Now,
thank you to the panel. Just a common thread being data and analytics across all of the presentations today. And back on that subject, I'd be interested in some commentary as to the specific capabilities or technologies that you see being most important for the industry to deliver or to speak to.
I'll start off. So from a procurement perspective, obviously, one of the activities that the Office of Chief Advisor will be looking to do in the not too distant future will be to just define what procurement information we want the agencies to capture and to be able to report on, so that we've got a common sort of data set across government. As I said earlier on, largely all of that information is being captured in our ERPs across the different agencies. But as I said, those implementations are focused sort of on a finance perspective and less so on the procurement aspects. And that's where we lose visibility of categories down a certain few levels because we're doing it by GL or cost centre. So what we really want to go to is a sort of material code or UNSPSC based categorisation, so we really understand what we're buying in some detail. So I suppose there are a number of technical, system solutions to that. If that's the path we go, you stay inside your ERP and make process changes. Yeah, there are e-procurement solutions out there that would be able to provide us a thin layer over the top of an ERP that would capture that data for us. So depending on which aspect we take, we wouldn't be looking to tell the agencies specifically individually what to do, just to define the requirements and allow them to satisfy those requirements, whatever's the best fit for the agency.
Do others have any commentary on the specific technical challenges or friction you're experiencing now?
For us, joining up government data is a huge challenge in that every department has different technologies, different data structures as far as how they've recorded things like clients. So bringing that all together, we're looking at, and we're working closely with Glentworth, and I thought I saw Vanessa here today. There she is. Very modest. We're looking at how we can utilise something like an enterprise services bus to draw in that information, manage it in a joined up way, manage the data sets, join those data sets up, and then present it back through some sort of presentation layer, be it Microsoft or Dynamics or something like that. We're not really focused in at this stage on the specific technologies. Happy to talk to any vendor who's got ideas around that particular solution, but trying to more manage the flow of data as opposed to looking at the specific tool sets. And really, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but the technology isn't the hard part. It's the change management and getting agreement from a whole heap of different players about sharing information, and not wanting to make it sound totally negative. There are some challenges down at the lower levels within government of people who have managed those data sets for many years and trying to get their support to release that. And you can get support at a very senior level, but as you go down any organisation, any big organisation, you find that sort of middle management layer gets very, very hard to convince that that's what they want to do, and that it'll be a good outcome for them. So really, herding the cats is probably the biggest challenge, to be honest. Any comments, Vanessa?
Yeah. And Darren, just on the same point, as apropos of David's comment about the need for professional development activities around the procurement challenge in government, the same thing we see for the open data agenda going forward is not only just creating greater awareness and understanding across the levels of government, but then in specific roles and categories to actually do professional development across government, joined up government. So that's going to be one of the things we want to work with ADIQ on as well.
So just to say, from the SBIR perspective, humility is at the core of this process. We're not actually defining solutions, so the technology is absolutely not specified. The outcome is what matters, at the right price, of course. So solving this challenge, addressing the challenge at the right price with a viable solution. The process has been designed at its core with this understanding that technology and digital is moving at such a pace that there are new things out there now that can potentially help address challenges that don't come on the radar very easily, just like some of the things that might have been mentioned earlier about voting and other things like that. So there's a structured process to allow people to put forward solutions which may have technology at their heart, but it's not specifying it. There are new innovative technology pieces that are coming along every day, some of them in the cloud, some of them applications, some of them very specific, so we won't even get into any of that stuff. We're not looking at that. It's what will solve the challenge best, and there's a real understanding that technology is almost certainly at the core of it nowadays. So what is it, and how can that deliver the outcomes for the people of Queensland?
Okay, we've got room for one or two final questions. Yep. So we'll go that side and then just down the front. Matthew, thanks. We'll take that gentleman first.
Sorry, another question for Darren around some of the stuff at community. So you mentioned mobility and a mobile workforce. So mobility means different things. Excuse me. To a lot of people, so interested in how that sort of worked for you guys. I'm assuming that means line of business applications to your front end staff and that core. So how's that gone as far as either replacing what you've got or transforming?
Yeah. If I can describe the life of a child safety officer, they're out, they're visiting a house, perhaps with police escorts, very tough environment, probably one that most of us here will never experience, to be honest. They're taking case notes, they're trying to talk to families and understand the pressure. They may need to get that family to sign off on specific documents and things like that. Then they come back, and at the moment they're then stuck to the desk typing in all that information and trying to remember it and capture it. And ironically, through a piece of legislation that we have in government, the record is actually the scribble on the piece of paper that also has to be stored. So, that's not a great use case when you describe that, the tools we're providing. So what we will be giving them, and we've started this process, is the ability to capture at source. So wherever possible, can I use some sort of device to directly capture that information, or at worst I capture it on a piece of paper and then transcribe it pretty well, shortly after. They might be driving, or they might be at an airport or something like that, and they can capture that information there. So they're not tied to coming back to the desk. We've started a statewide rollout of tablet devices. We're already, I would say, probably about 2/3 of the way through that. So most regions across the state already have those devices. There's only North Coast, which is Sunshine Coast, and Brisbane's the core, the CBD part, less service delivery in that particular part. So that's the start of it. But what we then need to do is put the right tools on those devices. There are some apps now, but we want to strengthen that and put more and more solutions on there. That's part of that child and family program that I described earlier. And that needs to, of course, integrate back into our integrated client management system. It needs to be a two-way push, because as I knock on the door, I need to know what's the risk of entering this household. What do I need to know about the history of this household, etc., etc. Are there people who may be a threat to me? And we need to integrate that into police systems so that we can get flags from Queensland Police that advise us on what we're walking into. So I use that use case just to describe the sort of work we're doing. It's probably, look, I think my staff would say it's not going as fast as I want, but the tools need to be robust and work strongly, and you don't want to be sitting there sort of saying to your client, oh, can you just wait a minute, I'm just booting up and it'll be 10 minutes, but just relax, It's not that sort of environment. You need stuff instant on, instant off, very, very reliable sort of stuff. So it's really a fun place to work from that perspective, because you're out working with that front line, understanding their pressures, looking at what they want to do. We take a real co-design sort of approach, again, a bit cliche, but we make sure that we're developing things that they really want and that they can own and have strong ownership. I touched on Kickbox, I only scraped on that, but underneath all that is a interface for the child safety officers, so that they can be communicating with children through sort of a instant messaging type application. The children can put on a mood indicator, so we can see, how the child's feeling at a particular point in time, if they choose to use it. And you can't sort of go, oh, they've got a sad face, I need to respond. But, okay, here's a trend of sad faces. Okay, maybe I can help that child out. Maybe they've got suicidal thoughts. Maybe we need to assist them through other mechanisms. So it's a fun thing to do, but it needs to happen as quickly as we can.
Thanks, Darren. We'll take one final question down the front. Yeah.
Perhaps a question for David. Part of the challenge of adopting an outcomes-based procurement model is that very early on in the cycle, you want to get a lot of the relevant stakeholders in the room to discuss what kind of outcomes they're actually looking for. How do you, through your current policies and process, ensure that early on you've got the end user, you've got the people who are impacted by this procurement, that they have involvement in defining either what the problem is or what the outcome might look like?
So I suppose more than anything, the approach that we're taking now, in the outcomes base particularly, is being driven in communities. We're working really closely with the communities team to get their category councils and some of their governance structures and their category strategies, etc., stood up. But a large part of the layer underneath the category council governance that I showed on that governance slide was a number of category working groups, and the idea of the category working groups for the different categories or subcategories is to pull together all of the subject matter experts in government to start on those categories and get them to lead the strategy, to really drive the input of the end users into the strategy, so that we make sure that when we do category strategies and plans and initiatives, that we're driving what government needs rather than necessarily what sometimes procurement thinks they need. And then we're strongly encouraging at the category and the subcategory level those working groups and the councils to engage with industry, so that we get that industry perspective, particularly as we go for more innovative procurement approaches, outcomes-based, etc. That we're really understanding the capability and capacity of industry to be able to do what we want.
I guess just adding on from that, for the SBIR process, part of the bit that comes before releasing the challenges to market are a series of structured problem definition workshops that are facilitated by our partners at PwC to bring together a wide range of operational, technical, policy people who are experienced and subject matter experts around the challenge, and in addition, end users, customers, stakeholders of government that will be impacted by the proposed solution. So they brought together through a couple of structured workshops to define the challenge carefully before they're released to market.
So just one final comment. In relation to the ICT category, you really need to talk to City through either Mike Stootman or Randy Rainbow, who have been involved in that loop and continue to be involved in that loop. So the ICT category, that's who you need to talk to within government. So, all right, on that we might conclude this morning's event. So I'd like to thank everyone for turning out on what is a reasonably cold morning. Hopefully it's the end of winter. I'd like to thank everyone who's online for participating today, and hopefully we will continue to build an online audience into the future. And particularly I'd like to thank our four presenters this morning, in Darren and David and Kylie and Ben, so please join with me in thanking them. And obviously invited to join us for a bit of networking and some tea and coffee and nibbles out front until 10 o'clock. We'll be sending you out a bit of a post-event survey again, so that we can get an indication how this morning's gone in your mind. And finally, our next event is going to be on the 18th of November. So you'll hear about that closer to the event. So thanks everyone for coming this morning, and look forward to networking outside. Thank you.